Hello people, and welcome to Sampling Affair. Today I'm going to show you how you can set up the KORG M1 in multitrack mode, so you can combine the M1 with a lot of different gear like sequencers to combine it for a hardware jam or a Dawless jam. So today I'm going to show you the basic concepts. I'll be using the MPC 500 here as an external sequencer, but this can work with any other sequencer that you have. So first we have the program mode, where we can choose a different sound, a different synthesizer. But if we want to use more than one synth at the same time, we have two different modes. The first is the combi mode, which can use up to 8 different sounds, which can be played at the same time. So sounds are divided on the keyboard and can be played at the same time. But what we are going to use for today is the sequencer mode. And the sequencer mode provides us with 8 different tracks, so we can play each sound individually in a song. So here we have the example sequence, song 0. I can start it, and you hear the song is playing with around 8 different tracks. So let's stop it. We have on track 1, we have this sound. We can go to track 2, we have this sound. And goes on. We can use up to 8 different tracks. As long as you stay in the sequence mode, we have the opportunity to use 8 synth sounds at the same time. So let's take an empty sequence. The KORG M1 is capable of storing up to 10 different songs. I'm going to use song 8, which is empty. And we're going to set up the KORG M1 and the MPC 500 to use them together for a Dawless jam. The sequencer of the KORG M1 has an internal sequencer that you can use to create songs, but the problem is that the sequencer doesn't have a real looping mode like the most sequencers like the MPC 500 have. So in order to make a song on the KORG M1, we have to go every time from the start of a song to the end. It's not possible to do it in a kind of loop, like with the MPC workflow or with the workflow other sequencers provide. So that's why it's necessary, or why it's better to use a external sequencer when combining with the KORG M1. So I hooked both the machines up with MIDI cables. I got the MIDI out from the KORG M1 going to the MIDI in from the MPC 500, and the MIDI out from the MPC 500 back to the MIDI in from the KORG M1. The KORG M1 has a MIDI through out, and we can use this to route the MIDI data to other external sequencers or synthesizers, drum machines, whatever we want to like, if we want to use a greater setup. But today this is everything we need. So let's set up the KORG M1. We can move up to the page track program to set each synth individually for the 8 tracks. So on the first, in this example, we're going to use a drum track. On the second, I'm going for the 60 piano. And on the third, I'm going to use, let's use the organ too. So for today, this is everything we need. We can use up to 8 different, but we are only going to use 3. So on the next page, we can assign the track volumes. We're going to this a little bit later. On track stages, we can set if the track is turned on or off. And on the next, we have the MIDI channels. This is important because we have to set the MIDI channels so we can use them with the external sequencer. And here it's the setup from 1 to 8. This is okay. but if you need to assign a different channel to a track, you can use it, and we can go to up to 60, from 1 to 60 MIDI channels. But today this is everything we need. So we can go back to the first page and can start recording. But at first we need to set up the external sequencer for this. So what we need to do, this really depends on the sequencer that you have, but I think most have a kind of like common setup, is go to the settings and to set the receive channel to all. So we receive all MIDI channels from 1 to 60. So in the sequencer, what we need to set is the channels according to the KORG M1. So on the MPC 500, we can go to track and params and assign a MIDI channel to a track. And we assign it just the way that it's assigned in the KORG M1. So on track 1, it's MIDI channel 1. On track 2, it's MIDI channel 2. And on track 3, it's MIDI channel 3. That's everything we need to do when we set up. Let's just start jamming. I'm going to hit the record button and play, so we can, in a dynamic loop, create a song, create a pattern for each of those tracks. So I start on track 1, which is the drum set, and let's just come up with something. So here it just started looping what I just played. So we can go on. So from here we can go to the next track, which is the piano. I do it here on the KORG M1 to change it, and also on my external sequencer. Now we're on track 2, and you hear I'm playing the piano just right now. So let's just come up with something. And we can go on, move up to track 3 and do this again on the sequencer. Now we're on track 3. And what's good about using an external sequencer, what we can do now, we can take out the tracks as we are playing and jam with it. And we can always go back to a track, like here on the first track, the drums, and add something. And that's it. Also, it's important to know that when you're in sequence mode, the synth presets that you use might sound a little bit different, because we only have 2 effects which are assigned to all of the synthesizers. So we have here, for example, on effect 1, the Hall effect, and on effect to an equalizer. So every synth sound normally in the program mode has its own set of effects, but in sequence mode they are turned off and routed to the effects from the sequence, which are only 2. You can change them if you want to use a different effect, but this applies to all the sounds for the sequence. Another thing that you need to know is that when you are in sequence mode, all the sounds are routed to the same outputs. So here in the tutorial, I'll be using the first and second output of the KORG M1. So if you want to mix the individual synth sounds, you need to go to the track volume page and assign them individually right here. So for example, if you want to make the third sound a little bit take them out for a mix. I guess this is really important to know, because if you want to record the M1 in multitrack mode, you have to mix it right here, because later all the synth sounds are combined in the output. I hope you enjoyed the tutorial, and we'll see you next time.